Welcome, everybody. Hello and welcome to this beautiful day in the Coachella Valley, right? Water. Who ordered the water? But water, as Maria says, water is life. So we welcome it. So welcome to CHICANA, Her Story, an event to celebrate Women's History Month. And I'm going to read a little bio on Maria, and then we're going to go ahead and start, okay? Maria Elena Ramirez is a woman of Chicana, Puerto Rican, and Apache ancestry. She is a published writer and poet, performance artist, and speaker. Maria has performed at numerous youth conferences, multicultural and women's history conferences, as well as diversity and teacher training sessions. She has taken her performances to Spain, Finland, New Zealand, and most recently in Toronto, Canada, at the World Indigenous Peoples Conference on Education. She has also been to many states in the US and up and down her home state of California, including the Storytellers of the Americas Conference in Buffalo, New York, and she's previously been here at College of the Desert in 2011. Maria's activism began in the late 60s by supporting the farm workers' struggle and the fight to open colleges and universities to Chicano, Native American, and African Americans. She was a founding member of the Chicano Student Union at Chabot Community College and continues this kind of effort at UC Berkeley as a student beneficiary of the Third World Liberation Front strike for ethnic studies as an EOPS student. And she's been a member of many other coalitions and movements, too long to list. So now, here is CHICANA, Her Story. You've heard history, now hear hers.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here with you youth, you beautiful people. Usually before I start, I sage. Most Native people, they use the sage or the cedar or the copal, whatever they get together to help bring about positive energy, to take away so much negativity. Because some of what I share, it's not about hatred or separation, but we'll never heal unless we deal with the truth. And so I thank you for being here. I honor the people whose land we stand on. Be good protectors of the earth. They call me Roots Woman, and like the song says, I come to turn you on. I don't mean the cochinada way, not the nasty way, no. Turn you on to the importance of knowing your roots, the most important thing Forget your roots and you're lost. I want to share with you some prophecies of the great native people of this land so you will know how wise, how smart they are, and how much meaning their words have for all of us today, especially today, following an awful pandemic that affected so many. The first prophecy is one that many, many Native people had. A new cycle of time. The Aztecs foresaw the coming of the white man, followed by a long period of suffering for their people. The great Maya, whose calendars charted the universe and who gave the world the concept of zero, predicted the exact day that Cortez would arrive on our shores. They also saw a long period of suffering. They called it the 9 hells. And I know even many of you here have suffered, sometimes at the hands of those that should have protected and defended and loved you. But you come from a higher power, and according to our understanding of time, which is different from what you're taught, time is not like a line that starts here and goes here. No, everything our ancestors observed in the universe showed us that time is cyclical. Whether it is our moon that goes around our earth every 28 days, a lunar cycle, or our earth that goes around the sun every solar cycle, or our sun that goes around the constellations every 28,000 years. This is the time that they said our people would have a rebirth, socially, economically, educationally, and that time is now, and I see it. A lot of the young ones know so much, and they tell me, what is the truth of our history? And I tell them we were never the savages that we have been portrayed. There is another prophecy, the prophecy of the eagle and the condor. The eagle representing the peoples of the north, and the condor, the people of the south. They said at this time we would come together as we did in the past when there were no borders, and we went up and down and all around this hemisphere for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And I see it now. People from all over are here, and we look and we remember that deep connection. And the other prophecy is one that I see all over. Many Native people had the prophecy of the rainbow warriors, the time when all the people of the world would come to our land at this time and reaffirm our one humanity if we are to go on as a human species and defend the earth, the mother of us all. You poison the earth, we poison ourselves. We used to know that. Now is the time for all of us to bring out the best of our teachings, the best of your abilities, so we can turn this time of war and separation and pollution around. And you could have the kind of world you deserve. Those dreams you have of your greatness, don't be afraid of them. They're needed now more than ever. And I will die a happy old woman knowing I have seen the beginnings of a shift for a better life, a better world for you all. And remember, no matter where you come from, your roots go deep into this earth that unite us all. I am Chimalma, High Priestess. I didn't say Empress. I didn't say Princess. High Priestess and co-leader of the great Mexica migration that left our northern homeland of Aztlán and traveled far, far to the south, to the valley of Anahuac, where we settled and built our new homeland upon the previous high civilizations of the Americas. The Olmeca, Tolteca, the Maya, Teotihuacan, Zapotec, and our homeland, Tenochtitlan. Back then, we called ourselves Mexica, the people. Most native people of the Americas, their name meant the human beings. And to be a human being meant we lived in balance, in harmony with all our relations, on a planetary level and on a cosmic level, for we studied the universe in order to understand our place in it. And we saw all these opposite forces, all these contradictory energies, and yet there is great balance. And we saw how human nature is a reflection of nature. So we honored these energies. We honored the masculine energies in all their forms, but we always, always honored the feminine energies. For we could look into the night sky and observe the Milky Way. And we called her the great cosmic mother, birthing stars and galaxies and our own solar family. The power of mother is the power to make, to create, and to transform. And so we honored that energy on a cosmic level, on a planetary level, for we called her Mother, Mother Earth. And what a special mother she is, giving not everything that we need as two-leggeds, but all the four-leggeds, the winged, the standing people, the trees, everything. And so we honored her. And we honored that energy in human form. And that is why over 70% of the native nations of the Americas followed the line of descent through the mother, as opposed to under patriarchy, right? You follow the mother. So when you come to the people, there's no stigma of illegitimacy or being called a bastard. No, you come through the mother and you come to the people. So I want to share her story of the Americas, because we've heard his story, right? So as Native people on this land, we knew that Mother Earth had children of many colors, for they came to our land long before Columbus. On the West Coast, we had contact with Japan and China long before Columbus. Pacific Islanders were such great scientists and navigators of the sea that they came to our land, and we saw our connection. Africans did not first come to this land as slaves. The ancient Africans knew of a current that left the west coast of Africa right into our Gulf. And they came, and we exchanged the great knowledge of math and science, the pyramid knowledge. Science and math were our strengths in both Africa and the Americas before colonization. And even from Europe, let me have a little. And even from Europe, when Europe honored the earth, they came to our land, and there was no disruption. But at a certain time in our history, people came to our land with a mindset we didn't understand. And they came and they carved out a piece of it, and they called it New England. And others came, New France, New Portugal, New Netherlands. And when they came to our Anahuac. They called it New Spain, and their intent was to erase all of the high markings of the native people of that land. The conquistadors knew to honor, to colonize a people, you not only colonize them brutally, violently, but you must erase their history. You must get them to think they are inferior to you. And that is why they burned the great libraries of Texcoco and Tenochtitlan, the accumulated knowledge of the Americas in the sciences, in the math, in the plants, the books of the Maya. The priests used to write how they loved these codices, how they loved their books, their cosmovision. And what they did, they stacked our books up and they burned them. They say it took 7 days to burn our books. 3 days alone for the medical libraries, that was the strength. The most promising careers were in the sciences and medicine. They burned our books, and then they burned our schools. And did you know we had schools? The priests used to write, who would have thought that a nation of savages so loved their children that they had a compulsory educational system from the very young to the master's level? And when they did this, also, what did they do? When they landed, the Spaniards landed in 1519, 2 years later. That's when Cortez said they had vanquished our city, Tenochtitlan, through their diseases. It wasn't COVID back then. It was smallpox that they weaponized. These are the kinds of things that happen. And Cortez said, now they will take our names, the master's names. And that's how we got Spanish surnames. They also imposed their language. Before we were part of Uto-Aztecan languages. Nahuatl was one of them. These languages were spoken from Alaska all the way to Nicaragua. How else could the Mexica migrate so far unless the language? But what did Cortez do? No, take away forbid their native language, and the first European language they imposed was Spanish, and then the religion, and then they closed off our land. They closed it off and rewrote so much. And yet, look at us, we're still here. We still love life. We still want to pursue our education. And so I want to tell you about our resistance, how our resistance is still here. They told me, if you don't have music, they ain't gonna listen. Hey, do you remember the guy that started the lie back in 1492? His name was Christopher Columbus. And they say he discovered us. If the truth were told, that vato came for gold. He cut off our hands and stole our lands. Now don't forget our genocide. They claimed manifest destiny was on their side. Our gente just didn't know the lengths the invaders would go to quench their greed and their wanton need for lots of money. And the results have been anything but funny. In 500 years, all our worst fears have come to be. Ecological disaster. It's a reality. And yet, we must fight for what's right and keep our objectives in sight. Throughout these 500 years of resistance, we have struggled to maintain our persistence for our way of life without war and strife, respect for Mother Earth, and our rebirth as a people and a nation. There's no stopping our reclamation. Now many will hotly disagree since they really don't want to see the ills of a sick society. Oh, they prefer to live a big lie. So we become the bad guy. But soon their bubbles will burst, and it's none for the worse if it means saving Mother Earth by giving birth. Here's to a new day when united we'll say, resistance is insistence on our very existence. Resistance is insistence on our planet's existence. Our planet's existence. It's all related. It's all connected. A web of life with you and me. Thank you. So what happened? All these invaders started fighting over the land. The Spaniards, when they arrived, their colonization went into Mexico. It was in the islands, right? First they landed in the islands, off the coast, then into Mexico, South America, up the East Coast, and up the West Coast. In 100 years later, the English came in, what was it, 1619. And they called themselves New England, right? And New England, eventually, all these colonies started fighting each other. And New England broke away and became the United States of America. So these forefathers that we're taught about, Franklin, Jefferson, they were thinking, well, what kind of, constitution, how will we develop our nation, our government? And there was a native tribe on the East Coast, 5 native nations that at one time had been at war with each other, but came together under the great law of peace. They're known as the Iroquois Confederacy, the Haudenosaunee Nation. So the forefathers of Franklin, they used to listen to the oratory of the chiefs of the Confederacy. And the chiefs would say, we the people. So, hey, that sounds good, we the people. So they like that. They liked that there was a balance of power between the executive, legislative, and judicial branch. They like that. But you know what they didn't like? They hated the power of the women of the Iroquois Confederacy because it was the women that picked the chiefs. And to be a chief, you could not have committed a theft. You couldn't be a thief, that mentality. You could not have murdered anyone. And you could not have sexually assaulted anyone. Because these women knew that if a man did that in his private life, what happens with the intoxication of power? So it was the women that chose. And if a man abused his power as chief, the clan mothers could take that back then they had the horns representing power. They would just remove the horns, and the men would defer. The women also of the Iroquois nation, they decided if there would be peace or war, because it was the mothers whose sons, whose brothers, whose husbands would go to war, and sometimes women. So it had to be a compelling reason to go to war. Look at that power. The early feminists on this land from New England, they thought when they broke away from New England that they would have more rights as women, because under patriarchy, they had no rights under the law. They couldn't vote, and yet they could look at this Indian nation and see the women pick the chiefs, decide, and vote, and vote. They influenced the early white women, you know. And remember, when they said all men are created equal, did they mean that? Did they mean that for we the people? No, because at the same time they were doing that, they were they were capturing and bringing in chains Africans to work the land. And these were not slaves. They had no talents. No. They knew how to work the land. The people they brought that they enslaved. So there was an opportunity to end slavery because England was getting out of the slave trade. But these founding fathers all owned slaves, and they started making so much money that they kept it going here. So how could such a small nation control so many people of color, right? Well, they used tactics of divide and conquer. So that's what I want to talk about, how divide and conquer. How divide and conquer still works. A little louder. Divide and conquer. Divide and rule. It's a system of control that's incredibly cruel. First used by the Romans to build their empire, for ruling the world was their heart's desire. It didn't stop there. It spread like a fire. Soon the sun never set on the British Empire. This little island nation, so tiny, so small, who would have thought they nearly ruled us all? The US of A, back in the day, had their own say in getting their way. In 1712, by the James River, listen to the words a slave owner did deliver. I got this from a real speech. I have a foolproof method for controlling your slaves. It works for me and will work for you. And this is all you need to do. You pit the old against the young, young against old. This is just one of your keys of control. Pit light-skinned against the dark-skinned, and dark against light. And last but not least, you will never fail. You pit the male against the female, and female against male. Use envy, distrust, lots of fear, and you can rule year after year, year after year, year after year. This message is still true today. Unfortunately, I'm sorry to say, Look at people of color. We're hurting one another, and we're killing our own for reasons unknown. We're fighting over colors, red versus blue. Not just Crips and Bloods, but Raza too. It's North against South, East Coast versus West, each trying to prove who's the best. We're all losers in this endless game, and considering our numbers, it's a downright shame. We need to wake up, analyze who we're gonna let control our lives. It's time to unite. Make the world a better place for all the sacred colors of the human race. Human race. Let's throw off these chains that shackle our brains, that keep us divided when we should be united. The time of the rainbow warriors has come. Each of you deserving of your place in the sun. Rainbow warriors without weapons of war, armed with intelligence, heart, y valor. Sacred colors of red, black, brown, yellow, and white. Yet one humanity in our Creator's sight. Rainbow warriors, that's what I see, reflecting Mother Earth's diversity. Divide and conquer, it's time to replace, unite and fight. For the human race, the human race, the human race. Thank you. So one of the worst ways that I feel that divide and conquer has impacted us as a people of this land is the way they have divided the masculine and the feminine. Do you know when the invaders first came, whether it was in Mexico or northern parts, they came, only the men came, right? And most Native people, they used to say, where are your women? Where is the balance? So they already saw this was something different, something different. And like I said, most Native people didn't even have a word for rape. You think about the California Native people in this land, the weather was usually so good that a lot of the women went with very little clothing, right? And what do they always, oh, well, you know, it's how you dress, that's why you get raped. But these women went around without clothes. And the men weren't raping them. They weren't beating them. They weren't stealing their children from them and doing terrible things. So where does the root of all this violence against women and children come from? And to understand that, we need to go back to Europe. We call the conquistadors the sons of the Inquisition. So what was the Inquisition? Well, a couple hundred years before they came to this land, in Europe, the royalty, the kings, and the church, at that time, there was only one church. The Roman, used to be the Roman Empire, the Roman Catholic. They got together to consolidate male rule, patriarchy. And who questioned them in Europe? It was the educated women of Europe, the midwives, the women that knew the plants. The elder women used to say, this is not private property, this is communal land. You can't take it. And they go, oh, she is a witch. She is the devil. And what did they start doing in Europe? They started gathering all the women, these wise women who questioned them. And they put them in the town square, and they put a fire to them. And this is known as the burning times in Europe. And they said that they burned hundreds of thousands to millions of their own mothers, grandmothers, aunts. They put them in front of the town in order to terrorize the other women to go along. They burned midwives because, you know why? Because they had said women need to suffer during childbirth. And who countered that? The midwives used to massage. They used to give herbs to ease it. So they burned them. They burned the women that knew the cycles of the moon, the planting, the herbs. They burned them. They burned women with property. They burned a lot of older women. They got so crazy during these times, they even burned homosexuals, because that's when the rigidity of the, you have to be a man, this kind of man. So they burned hundreds of thousands of homosexuals. They got so crazy, they burned cats, because cats represented the darkness, represented the feminine. And when men do that to people, to women, since we believe you have both energies in you, masculine and feminine, none of us are 100% feminine, 100% masculine. We have a mixture of energy. So when men do that, we think they became very unbalanced. And then they came to a land that honored the feminine in all its form. From Europe, women, our bodies became sinful, right? And yet on this land, because we saw how from the great cosmic mother came through the birth canal, our planetary system, there was no shame. There was a regenerative energy of the universe in human form, so our women were sacred. We were honored. And if men honor the earth, they honored our women. But this was what happened when they came here. So I want to talk about how have we adopted some of these names that we call each other now. Go ahead and play 4. So this is how we have, before the violence used to come from outside, and now we have internalized it with our way we look at women and children. Don't call me a hoe no more. Oh no. No, no, no. That's gotta go. It's gotta go. If we're talking unity, then there's got to be at least some degree of R-E-S-P-E-C-T. Of R-E-S-P-E-C-T. Now, I'm not looking for a fight. I just want to help set things right. These names you call me, downright appall me. Bitch, tramp, whore. I just don't want to hear it anymore. I am your great-great-great-grandmother. Your happy, crazy, loca tia. Hey, how about call me Maria? I love my gente, and I'm part of la lucha. So please, if you don't mind, don't call me a puta. Hey, come on, think about the names we're calling each other. And how come that's the first Spanish word that people learn? Come on. It's time we get together, reassess our indigenous traditions that are the best, the ways of our elders that promote peace and harmony. which is the way it used to be. And so you see, I'm not out to be your superior. I just don't want to be treated like I'm inferior. The feminine and masculine energy was always recognized as the duality, the yin, the yang, duality. This duality is the key to unleashing your creativity for the benefit of humanity. The eagle and condor prophecy speaks to the need for unity in order to fulfill your destiny. Your destiny. Please stop with the bitch, tramp, and whore. There just is no place for that anymore. Anymore? Anymore. Don't call me. You know. And you know you know. And what's with the fag? And what's with the dyke? And all this queer, how come that is so much more separation and fear? We know we need to start thinking, how do we get back to the balance and the respect that we all are due? Thank you. Okay. How much more? 10 more minutes? 15? Okay. So what I'd like to end with is the whole thing about this flag here. This is the rainbow flag of the Andes of South America, the Andean people. Now, I know we're aware of the rainbow flag, but this is the original indigenous flag of the Americas. This is one version of it. 7 colors, because the rainbow represented regeneration in the Andes. And each color means something. You know, think about our flags. You know, we have some stars and stripes and bombs bursting in air, but this is the red represents the earth. The orange is society and culture. The yellow is energy. The light blue is time, cyclical time, natural time. When the colonizers came, they brought a calendar which was based on the Roman Empire. July was after Julius Caesar, and he wanted 31 days because he wanted more days than the others. Caesar, Augustus Caesar, August. Julius Caesar, July, he wanted 31 days. So we have a calendar based on an empire that colonized out of ego. There's no rhyme or reason. But we have natural lunar calendar. You know, the first calendar of the Maya was a lunar calendar, and it was the women putting together a 28-day cycle. When we were only under the moonlight, women bled together. And so these women put the cycle to a cycle of women. That was the first calendar. And not only the Maya, throughout the world. Another calendar of the Maya, the Solstice calendar, 260 days, representing human gestation, when the babies are in. So between the hips of women, they made the connection of cycles and honoring. So I just wanted to tell you this so you can see, you know, as a people, look at their mentality. Blue was the heavens, and violet self-determination. We can't let others who don't know our culture, who don't know our abilities, determine what we are. Self-determination. This here is a replica of the banner of the Mexica. And the last time they waved it was when the conquistadors were fleeing Tenochtitlan, and they were putting gold in their pockets, because that was the most important thing, whereas our gold was our culture. This is the banner. It's now in the Vatican Library. They gave it to the Pope back in 1521. But what does it represent? This here is our solar family, represented our solar family. In the center is the eagle, and the eagle for many cultures is an astral bird. The eagle flies the highest. It can look at the sun, and yet it sees everything. Shouldn't we strive to have vision that's not so closed? In the mouth of the eagle is not a snake, like in the flag we have now. In the mouth of the eagle is a holder of the duality in nature, the opposites that we respect. The colors were red and blue, the very colors our young people are fighting over now. But yet, what did they represent? Opposites: fire and water, masculine, feminine, life and death. This is what the balance that we find in ourselves. It is on top of a nopal cactus, and cactuses still will bring nourishment. This was taken and given to the Pope. This is the culture that is still alive in us after how many years of colonization? But we need to decolonize. Don't believe how they say we treated each other. So I'm going to end with one more. It's called "It's Time to Decolonize Your Mind." It's time to decolonize your mind. Your mind. We've been miseducated for so long. Many of our youth think going to college is wrong. If you're proud of being bright, you get accused of acting white. What's with that? It's time to refocus all your great energy in order to fulfill the sixth son prophecy. So if you are a seeker of knowledge, then one way is completing college. It's not a white thing, it's the right thing. Now, some of the kids don't want to hear that. We know, but we're here to tell you, you really should go. In ancient times, upon this land, your indigenous ancestors had an education plan, respect for all people. And the natural world were parental instructions to each boy and girl. Self-discipline, self-knowledge. It was the key to fulfilling each individual's destiny. Education for every child was free. In fact, it was compulsory. Compulsory. That is up until the 16th century. That's when the conquistadors came from Spain, causing destruction, upheaval, and pain, enslaving our bodies and our minds, rewriting our history, leaving us with a colonized mentality. Today you can see the results of these lies. Our precious youth are dropping out of schools like flies. The achievements of so-called darker nations have all been denied in order to foster a form of white pride. But the truth shall set us all free. Bottom line, it's a necessity. Necessity. The science of mathematics, logic, astronomy, of philosophy, physics, chemistry were all discovered by non-white people. You see, the art of letters, music, poetry, drama, sculpture, painting too, discovered by people of color. It's true. The use of metals, principles of mechanics, even architecture, discovered or invented by people now called inferior. The high ideals of American freedom and democracy, thank the foremothers, the clan mothers of the Iroquois Confederacy. So whether you're black, brown, red, yellow, or white, a good education, a relevant education, it's a human right. A human right. Getting back on track is no big mystery. You start by learning your true history. Decolonize your mind. Let the light shine from within. Seeking wisdom is where you begin. So don't give up hope and drop out like so many and roam the streets in our land of plenty. Develop your mind, your body, your soul. Let's all make that our #1 goal. Thank you. Go for it, whatever your dreams are. Thank you. Thank you. There's some articles outside that I have written. She did make some copies of some articles on for women's history. And you know, the main thing I want you to honor the women in your family, your grandmothers, your aunts, all these unrecognized sheroes. We need to honor them for keeping us going, trying to keep the families together so that you could be here. And I just wish it wasn't so messed up. But when you reconnect to the earth, all those gifts you have can help turn things around. Be protectors, not predators in this world. Thank you.